you know, Mickey and Friends, Toy Story, Monsters Inc., you know, many of these things. Hello Kitty, Snoopy, and Angry Birds. And all the other brands, tens of years old, you know, take Mickey Mouse since 1928, or Hello Kitty, this middle-aged cat character from Japan, has been around for more than 40 years. But Angry Birds, 2 years, top 10. So 93% of the Chinese population knows the brand. 91% in India. I don't have a number for Vietnam, but probably over 90% of everybody in Vietnam knows the brand. 9 out of 10 people on the planet know the brand. And it started as a student project. You know, 3 young guys, Niklas, Kim and Jarno, Aalto University, Helsinki, Finland, made it happen. It's pretty amazing. So again, if those 3 guys in Helsinki, Finland could make that happen, guess what? You can do the same. No reason why not. So just to wake you up, I'll ask you a question. So who in here will make the next Angry Birds? The next Google, the next Facebook, the next big thing? Anybody? Really? Nobody wants to make anything like big, anything huge happen. So the point here is that there is no reason why you couldn't do the same thing. Niklas, Kim, Jarno, they were also young students at Aalto, you know, just like you are young students here, and they made it happen. So there is no reason why you couldn't do the same here in Hanoi, Vietnam, as we can do in Helsinki, Finland. No reason at all. You just have to believe that you can. And guess what? Of course you can. Just about do it. So again, impossible is nothing. It's not impossible to do this. I'm not saying that it's easy. I mean, at Rovio, 51 games, and the 52nd game was Angry Birds. But again, you know, it takes some time, it takes some work. But one thing is certain: if you don't start, if you don't do anything, of course, you will not, you know, create the next Angry Birds or the next Google or the next, you know, big thing. So it's very, very important that if you want to do that, you shouldn't hesitate, you shouldn't be afraid, you should just like start doing it. That's the most important thing. And of course it always helps if you follow the advice I gave to Niklas and the guys, that, you know, you should do what you love. This was also very important at Rovio, that if you look at the games, they're all games that we love to play ourselves. So it's very important that you do that, you know, like again, if you're just, if you're not using the products, if you're not playing the games that you're making yourself, if you're not, you know, if you don't like them, if you don't love them yourself, I mean, then it's pretty difficult for other people to, you know, like get into that as well. So typically, any good company, any good product, any good service, you can see, you can feel that they're made by people who love what they're doing. Very important. You have to have that passion, you have to have that energy, that drive to make those things. Because if you don't love what you're doing, guess what? You're doing the wrong thing. It's up to you, you should do something else. Then what happened, as I said, we made Angry Birds very, actually the fastest growing consumer brand ever. We expanded into animation, consumer products. We made a movie that came out in 2016. And actually, as we're here at the Foreign Trade University, I have to actually share a story about the movie. So the movie came out the 20th of May 2016. And one thing that I can say here that Vuotsai Beijing Beijing da Shuasilo Baga Chinchi do Hanyu, Dansher Wada Hanyu Haiwan May. So how many years speak Chinese? Anybody? No? Okay. So yeah, what I just said is that I spent 8 weeks in Beijing at Beijing Normal University studying Chinese, actually in 2016. But anyway, it's very important that you learn these languages while you're still young, so that's why I decided to do it now. So learning a bit of Chinese, because it might be more difficult when you're old, so I can highly recommend learning languages while you're still young. And obviously you're much younger than me, so it should be very easy for you. But anyway, about the movie, so as I said, it came out the 20th of May 2016, and we made it #1 in 52 countries. In the US, in China, in Finland, probably here in Vietnam. This story is actually from China. So I had dinner early 2016, so before the movie came out, with Mr. Gao Xiaoxun, so Mr. Gao. So he's very famous in China. He has his own talk show, he's a musician, he lives in Beijing and LA. So everybody in China, when I said that, okay, Mr. Gao, everybody knows him. So very big celebrity in China. And then we had dinner, and then I told Mr. Gao that, hey, the movie is coming out 20th of May. And then he said, why? Why did you pick such a bad date? 20th of May, it's still cold, you know, and you should have picked like Children's Day in June, you know, in China, that would be much better. Or in the US, you know, like LA, you know, May, very bad time, you should bring it out in the summer when it's like a bit warmer. And then I looked at God and said, God, it's 5-0. And he started laughing and said, fantastic, perfect day. Do you know why? Yeah, Bettina knows because she lives in Shanghai, but anyway. So in China, they're very serious about these like numbers. So 5-0 sounds like 我爱你, which means I love you in Chinese. So it's the unofficial Valentine's Day in China. So of course it was the perfect day to premiere the movie. And it became #1 in China. It did over $100 million at the box office in China, because we launched it the right day. But I wanted to share this example with you, that not only is it important to know about, you know, language, but it's important to know about culture. So I'm here to learn about Vietnam. I have many Vietnamese friends, but I have never been to Vietnam. So I have already learned a lot, and I've only been here like 2 days. So you never stop learning, and for me it's very important to understand, you know, what is going on here in Vietnam, you know, at the universities, the startups. We just visited your Ministry of Education. We had a very good discussion. But I think this is something that is very important, that you can't learn, you can't understand these things if you don't take the time, the energy, you know, visit the place. I mean, I go to China 2 times a month. Every month, 2 times. But okay, it's very easy because Helsinki is right next door to like Beijing and Shanghai. It takes 7 hours to fly from Helsinki to Beijing, 8 hours to Shanghai. We're also very close to India, 6 hours. Very close. I think we're probably the closest neighbor of Vietnam and also in Europe. So Helsinki is really ideally located at the heart of Eurasia. Europe on one side, Asia on the other side. So Helsinki is right in the middle of a 5 billion people market. So of course it's very easy for us because we have such a superior geographic location. But I mean, Vietnam is also a very nice location. And in Finland we only have 5 million people, here we have a few more. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity here in Vietnam. One thing also in 2008 started something called Slush. So this thing here. So that is actually the biggest startup event in the world. And that actually came out of a talk that I did in 2007. I went to Aalto University, so one of our top universities in Finland. And I gave a talk to 600 students about entrepreneurship. And I asked the students that, you know, how many of you want to start a startup or join a startup once you graduate or even before. And in 2007 in Finland, only 3 of 600 students raised their hand. So that was like a disaster, really, really bad, because that meant that most of them wanted to work for a big corporation like Nokia or Finnair or, you know, even the government. And of course there's nothing wrong working for a big company or the government, but we can't all do that. We also need the innovation, the people who will create the next Angrybird, the next Nokia, the next Google, the next big thing. So we have to do something about that. And always in Finland, when we have a big problem, a big challenge, I mean, as I mentioned, only 5 million of us, it means that we need to work together. So together with a few friends in 2008, we started Slush. 300 people came to the event, so, you know, about the same as here. And then I invited them, some of my friends, fellow entrepreneurs, Risto Siilasmaa, chairman of Nokia now, but he's founder of F-Secure. Ilkka Paananen was running a company called Digital Chocolate at the time. Okay, now everybody knows Ilkka because he started Supercell. So Supercell is the company that makes, you know, Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, many of these great games, also from Finland. But then Tencent acquired them for $10 billion, so not too bad. And then also invited Monty Videnius, created something called MySQL, database company, was sold to Sun Microsystems in the US for $1 billion. And then invited Sampo Karjalainen, created Habbo Hotel, company called Sulake. Ilja Laus started a company called GetJar in Vilnius, Lithuania, in our neighborhood. And I asked them to share their, you know, stories of being an entrepreneur, being a startup founder with the young people. And everybody was like, you know, super happy after the event, very energized. And at the event I said that, hey, by the way, guess what? Slush will become the biggest and best startup event on the planet. And you can probably guess what happened next. Then I was told that, hey Peter, you're crazy. It's not, you know, possible, because what about Silicon Valley? And I say, what about Silicon Valley? I mean, I work for HP, the company that started the Silicon Valley for many years, so like, what's the big deal? And they're like, yeah, but how can you create something that is bigger and better? And I said, yeah, you know, like, why not? Can't be impossible. So then what happened over the next few years, we grew Slush to over 20,000 people from 130 countries. And actually, 5 years after I started Slush together with my friends, I went back to Aalto University and we gave the same talk about entrepreneurship. Asked the same question. How many of you guys are going to start your own company, you know, or join a startup once you graduate or even before? And guess what? More than half of the students raised their hands. So in just 5 years, we did a cultural revolution. We totally changed the mindset in Finland around entrepreneurship. So I mean, if we can do that in Finland, you can do that here in Vietnam. And we're more than happy to work together with you guys on doing that. And do you know what makes Slush so successful? The fact that it's run by the young people. 2,600 volunteers built the Slush event last year. 2,600 young people from more than 60 countries, also from Vietnam. So working together, they are building the best and the biggest event on the planet. So of course, we can, you know, compete with Silicon Valley because we're working together. And I think this is something that is very, very important. Then also, another thing, it's very important to do something new. I mean, everybody else is doing these, what I call wannabe Silicon Valley events. I go to Beijing and they will tell me that, oh, Beijing wants to be the Silicon Valley of China. Then, you know, this happened 2 years ago. Then I went to following day from this startup event in Beijing. I went to Hangzhou, you know, home of Alibaba and many of these successful companies in China. And then, you know, Jack Ma, founder of Alibaba, he sang a song because he likes to sing at these events. And then the mayor of Hangzhou gets on stage and says that Hangzhou will be the Silicon Valley of China. And it's like, well, I heard this before. And then, you know, I went to Tokyo and they told me that, oh, Tokyo wants to be the Silicon Valley of Asia. Actually, another story. I went to this New Economy Summit that is kind of like the Japanese version of Slush, but a bit more traditional. And then there was a panel there where they discussed like what they would like to be in the future. So Nikkei Business was there, then Hiroshi Mikitani, who founded Rakuten, the Amazon of Japan. Then Tanaka-san, who started Green, one of the very successful, or used to be very successful games companies in Japan. And they had this discussion about like the vision for Japan. And they said that actually, now that they got the Olympics, next year, 2020, Tokyo wants to be the Helsinki of Asia. And then I told them that that is very ambitious, that even with the Olympics it might be very difficult for you to become like the Helsinki of Asia. But I like people with big ambitions, so I wish them luck, and we're also trying to help them to become the Helsinki of Asia, so you never know, it might happen. So anyway, you might ask, why is Slush different besides being organized by young people? It's also different because we made it so. I mean, we organize it not in the summer, but in November. And if you come and visit us in Helsinki in November, guess what? It's cold, it's dark, there is slush on the ground. So slush is this, like in between snow and water, not very pleasant substance. So there's slush in the streets. So it's very clear that it's not the Silicon Valley. It's better. It's much, much better because it's different. You can't lead by following. The Silicon Valley, fantastic place, but it's already there. So if you want to lead, you need to create something new. That's what we're doing with Slush. That's what we're doing in Finland. We are not copying, we are creating new things. And that is very important. So how are we doing that? Why are we able to do that? Because we have fantastic education. We probably have the best educational system in the world. Very short school days, almost no homework, fantastic results. So you have school and life. You have time